Pray with me. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Nobody likes to feel left out or forgotten. It's hard to believe that the gospel is good news unless it's good news for us. When we left off with Jesus last week, things were going pretty well. He had preached a message of justice and joy, of good news for the poor, and then he proclaimed, "Today, this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." The people of Nazareth listened in awe and wonder. This is the story they've been longing to hear. Jesus could have stopped there while he was ahead, but a gospel that is just good news for us is a gospel that is incomplete. So Jesus goes on in this morning's reading to tell this assembly of the faithful two stories from the Hebrew Bible. Two stories that would have been familiar to them. The first story is about Elijah, the great prophet of the kingdom of Israel. Now, during Elijah's ministry, there's a famine in Israel and all the surrounding nations. And instead of looking out for the chosen Hebrew people, God sends Elijah to stay with a widow in the Gentile land called Sidon. Elijah works a miracle, and this foreigner and her son have enough food to survive, even as the Israelites back home starve. And Jesus barely takes a breath before he launches into a second story about Elijah's successor, Elisha. While Elisha is prophet, Israel is at war with their Syrian neighbors. And Naaman, the ruthless commander of the Syrian army, has leprosy. And inexplicably, so it seems, God sends Naaman to the prophet Elisha, and he cures him of his disease. Plenty of Israelites suffered from leprosy, but God chooses to heal Israel's most wanted, the number one enemy of the state, Naaman. Two stories, two prophets, two miracles. And a whole bunch of God's faithful people gathered in that synagogue left wondering, what about us? The people of Nazareth get the message, and they do not like it. Jesus has been traveling about, working miracles and healing the sick in a place called Capernaum. And now he's come home to his family and friends. So they ask of him, do here in your hometown the things we have heard you did at Capernaum. But Jesus works no miracles in Nazareth. His people look at him, betrayed, and they ask, hey, what about us? The people of Nazareth are angry, and I think we understand why. It hurts to be left out, to feel passed over, cast aside. We who have become used to our privilege, we don't like to see someone else picked first. Sometimes just leveling the playing field feels like being rejected or forgotten. It's not because we're inherently bad or selfish people, it's because we're used to being picked first. Our own privilege is often invisible to us. Now, I think it's important to say that privilege itself is not a bad thing. We all hold different levels of privilege, different ways we move in the world, our race, our gender, our class, or our immigration status. Our privilege or lack thereof can come from our age, our ability, our sexual orientation, our level of education, our religion. Privilege in itself is really just the fact of life. But the danger comes when, like that crowd in Nazareth, we start to believe that something about us makes us more deserving than others. When we start to believe that we come first. The crowd in Nazareth is not angry that God heals. They're angry that God dares to heal the Gentiles before the chosen ones. Privilege can start out relatively innocuous, but left unattended to, we know, don't we, that these attitudes can turn deadly. A crowd in Nazareth becomes an angry mob that tries to throw Jesus off a cliff. A rally in Charlottesville, Virginia becomes a mob that runs over a young woman. We know these stories. And let us not forget that Jesus' inclusive and boundary-breaking gospel would go on to so anger those political and religious authorities that he will end up on a cross. Privilege can be dangerous when it blinds us to the truth. And maybe that's why Jesus couldn't just stop with that feel-good gospel in Nazareth. Because the gospel roots out any notion of privilege, any idea of us and them, right where it begins. The gospel, Jesus says, can't be good news for me unless it's good news for you as well. I wonder, who are you othering these days? Who is the them to your us? Republicans? Democrats? Anti-vaxxers? The mask police? People you consider lazy or ignorant? Immigrants? Evangelicals?
Hello. I'm just going for a walk.
We all
Thank you,
have
thank
a
you,
way of
thank you.
building the walls between us and them. But the gospel is for everyone. Salvation comes to everyone. God's grace and God's acceptance is infuriatingly undiscriminating. Jesus comes even to those people on the other side of the aisle, the other side of the fence, or the other side of town, the other side of the world, the other side of a long-held grudge. God's mercy is unbelievable and perhaps even a little offensive. By my judgment or yours, God may even put the wrong people first when it comes to grace and mercy. But to quote the Lutheran pastor, Reverend Nadia Bolz-Weber, whenever we draw a line between us and them, Jesus always manages to end up on the other side of it. So what about us? You know, maybe that's not the wrong question. Maybe it's just that we're drawing the us too small. What about us? All of us. What about God's whole community? What if the gospel is not good news unless it's good news for every single beloved person on God's great earth? There's room for everyone at God's table. The ones we like and the ones we sure don't. But thanks be to God for that, because that means there's room for me and for you. So sit down, scoot over, and make yourself comfortable in this feast of God's welcome. Amen.